Hi, my name is Kyle, and
What's up, Kyle?
I grew up in a racist home. My father was racist. When we adopted my son, he disowned me, but it was worth it. And my question to you is, though, when we're speaking to people on the other side, how do we get through the hurt and the pain that they want to hang on to? And how do we get them to see to move past that? How do we get them to see the better version of themselves that they can become, and that we're willing to help them despite, and I loved what you said so much, that skin is an idol.
Thank you all for coming to the Brexit Breakout Room. It's the story of how we left the left. I think when we were thinking about what to do for this breakout room, we wanted to take it back to the basics. All of us have a story. If you know anything about Brexit, we're full of stories. A lot of black people, Hispanic people, white people as well. We're not always joke. We're not BLM. We welcome everybody. But we have a lot of people who have experiences with with identifying with the left. Maybe at one point they went all in. We have a lot of people who were part of the BLM riots and all sorts of things. And yet they had a moment where they had a red pill, I call it a red pill moment, but a moment where they essentially realized that the way that they were going was not the way that they wanted to continue to go. And I thought it was important for us to dive into this because there are still so many people out here today who are in their moment right now. They're in their journey trying to figure out what I can do to be bold enough, I guess, to exit the left, right? And I say bold because it really does take a level of boldness. People lose their family, their friends, just for simply speaking out about their conservative values. You can lose your job, right? I have an experience with it. I won't get into that today, but I essentially lost my job that I was at because of the things that I was posting online about my conservative values. So, I really wanted to touch on this because even if you are a person who is already outspoken about your conservative values, you may know someone in your life who you can take the information that you learned today and you can encourage them with that information to help them in their journey. So, I have Gothics with me today and Craig Long. I want to give them a second to introduce themselves really quickly, just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Gothics. I'm a full-time content creator. I'm from Rhode Island, and I am not I'm not a political person. I was kind of thrown into this field, and I feel a moral obligation to speak about the things that I speak about. So, yeah, thank you.
Hey, how y'all doing? Good morning. First and foremost, thank you guys for coming in. It's a pretty decent crowd. I'm excited about that. My name is Craig Long. I am an online personality and political activist. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for you guys to hear my story. And hopefully we can walk away with something that encourages each and every one of you guys to speak out and continue the good fight. And that's what my hope is for you today.
So let's jump right in. So Gothics, I want to start with you. What was your defining moment or awakening that made you realize you needed to walk away from the left? Was there a specific event, idea, or experience that caused the shift?
Yeah, so I think it was a combination of a couple of events. The first was the live-action movie of Disney's The Little Mermaid. And when they recasted Ariel as a black actress, I took to online and I just saw people immediately throwing the race card around. And I said to myself, that's a little bit odd. And then a couple of months later, I see COVID start with the lockdowns, and yet you can go out and you can march and protest for George Floyd. And I started getting a lot of pushback from questioning the inconsistencies of these mandates, and I kept getting pushback from black leftists, which was the same community of people who were, yelling at me because I had an issue with everyone just throwing the race card around with the movie. And so it was really just me observing the inconsistencies in people's logic.
I think a lot of people actually go back to that moment too, because even at that point I was a conservative, but I do remember looking at how they were telling us the left was like mask up and stay home and save lives, but yet they were out here full, huge crowds breathing around each other. I'm like, this is not adding up. Something's wrong. Craig, did you have a moment yourself though that was a defining moment for you?
Yes, I've always been kind of the oddball. I think the pivotal point for me was during those the Black Lives Matter, the riots. It was one particular video that went viral, and it was everywhere, where a girl was just saying, rob Gucci, rob the Macy's, rob these stores, that is reparations. And it just was a pivotal point for me to realize that that is poor leadership. Most of you probably don't even know my story. I'm someone that, because of my decisions, I put myself in prison and I served time. So me being in the judicial system, to see someone promoting to break the law, and that is reparations, I said, that's poor leadership. I need to start speaking out and combating some of these poor ways of thinking. So that was the pivotal point for me, and what got me, like, I just started attacking it one by one.
Well, leaving the left is only part of it. What comes after it is really where the fight, I think, begins for a lot of us. What was the hardest part, Gothics, about leaving the left, especially considering cultural and societal expectations in minority communities? We're supposed to be, Democrats. We're supposed to identify with the left. So if we dare to think different, again, we get sometimes canceled by our own family members. So what was the hardest part about that?
Yeah, so I would say two things. At the time, I was a full-time content creator on Twitch, and I had a very large audience. It was growing rapidly, and I knew that most of my fans at the time were very liberal, and they supported things like BLM. And then on the other half of that, I am a Black woman, and so it's sort of implied that I have to hold a certain set of beliefs, or else I'm going to lose my Black card. And so these were two things that I was really struggling with. It's like, I don't want to go back to working in customer service, so like, what am I going to do? And so eventually I had to overcome that and just accept the reality that, yeah, I'm going to lose fans, I'm going to lose friends, but I need to stand up for what's truth, because otherwise, what else do I have?
Have you rebuilt your community since then?
Oh my goodness. My following has grown, like, it's quadrupled in size.
Love it. That's one thing about the conservative movement. They can cancel us, but we come together even stronger. So what about you, Craig, as well? What was the hardest part for you?
When I started speaking out, at the time I was a local business owner. I owned my own gym. I was a franchisee of a particular company. I'm not going to name the company. When you start speaking out and you're a business owner, initially people in that vicinity, in the community, they will cancel you because you don't think like them, or you're not supporting or voting for a particular person that they are. So I got a lot of backlash. I lost a lot of business. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I have to draw a line. I can just stop now and try to savor my business and continue on. Or I can say, you know what, I'm not going to allow these people to bully me. I'm just going to continue to keep doing it. So that's what I did. I continued to keep speaking out. And yeah, go ahead, you can clap. Another thing was, it's this, and I'm really working on changing my messaging, and I have to give a special shout out to a particular person. A lot of times my messaging can come off belligerent, but now I'm learning that there's other ways that I can get my message across without downing anybody. For me, first and foremost, the messaging of, there's a narrative of, there's somewhat of an anti-white, you gotta hate the white woman, white man narrative. And overall, for me, I just said, I can't adopt this way of thinking because my mother is mixed with white, and I have a large portion of my family that is white. So I started rejecting that, and when I did that, I lost a lot of friends, family members, people in the community, people that I've considered friends. I don't even talk to them or hear from them anymore because I've taken that stance. So yes, it is kind of hard to get a lot of pushback when you do begin to start speaking out and standing up for what you feel is right. So you will experience that, and that will happen.
I think it's one of those things where whenever I'm talking to someone, I let them know straight up, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be super easy and that everything's going to be rainbows and sunshine if you start speaking up about your conservative values. My mom stopped talking to me. My own mom, I remember she told me that I was an embarrassment, her exact words, I'm an embarrassment to the family, when I started to talk about who I wanted to vote for. And we went a year. We went a year without talking. And thankfully, we're talking today, But that was hard. But I will say one thing I did was I stood on my principles and what I believed in and on my values. And I didn't waver. And I think that's also a key thing for people because sometimes your family and friends they're waiting to see if this is just a trend. Are you just having a moment or something, right? And if you really believe in what you're standing for, you have to stand strong despite the backlash and who you lose. So that's a key thing I would say. But speaking more, going deeper into the backlash and isolation from like family and friends, how did you guys? I really want to get into how you guys navigated that because I know we're talking about that. Yeah, we overcame, we moved forward, but how? Because again, I want people who are watching to understand like what do I do in those really hard moments when I don't have anybody? Because for example, for me, when I first started talking and my mom decided not to talk to me and my family kind of just somewhat followed suit, I was a little alone for a second there. I was kind of figuring out like who do I turn to? My friends were looking at me a little bit sideways. I remember I put my first Facebook status up and everybody was saying I was getting paid by some random white man. I'm like, what white man? I don't know who I'm getting paid. Who was paying me? Like they were like, "Are you on drugs?" I'm like, "Drugs?" Like, I mean, I was losing. I can laugh about it now, but it was absolutely wild when it was happening. I was like, "What drugs?" I just simply said what I believed in. What do you mean? And it was people that knew my character, which was crazy. People I've helped throughout my life were now questioning me and who I was simply because of what I decided to stand up for. So it is a very lonely feeling. How did you guys navigate that? Did you guys have support from particular people, or just kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be very honest. It put me in a very depressive state for a while because I was also alone. I lost friends, and people, like you said, were also questioning my moral character. People that I've known my entire life. All of a sudden, I'm just like the worst individual to walk the face of the planet. And honestly, it left me a little bit black-pilled and hopeless for a while. So my recommendation to anyone that's in that predicament is, number one, to be okay with losing these people because these people are lost, and I was also one of those individuals. So we have to give them a little bit of grace and just recognize that they're lost, and if I can wake up, they can wake up too. But also, you need community. You need to surround yourself with other like-minded people, and you may find that within like the conservative movement, Republican Party, whatever. But I would take it a step further, and I think that people need to find community with other believers in God because you need to be grounded by something on a moral level, and you, as I said, you can join the right, you can take the red pill, but you can still be going in polar opposite directions. So just find that type of community, and you'll be all right.
I mean, she nailed it. I think all of us in this room, we experienced it, especially with this past election. It seemed like it was just the impossible. It just seemed like it wasn't going to happen, and you get in that weird space where, like, man, maybe I'm the crazy one in the room, and that's kind of how I felt on my just an individual level. It does get lonely. You do go in forms of depression. There's no one really to talk to. I can't call my father because my father's at complete odds with me. I can't call my mother. She's all the way on the left. You know what I mean? So it's like, who do you turn to? And she's right. We have to draw from each other. It's events like this. It's getting involved. Organizations like Blexit, getting involved, finding out local chapters, finding out things that you can plug yourself in, and just surround yourself around like-minded people. And always keeping the faith. If you're doing what you feel is right, stand on that and don't waver from it. And like she said, always put God first, and he will take care of it, and he will pave the way.
Amen. Today, well, we all saw the results of the election, right? Are we all feeling good? I know we were watching. My wife and I were sitting at home watching on election night with our popcorn. We were ready. We were like, let's go. But, today we see a shift, right? We're seeing more Black Americans, more Hispanic Americans, just minority communities in general waking up more than ever before. And, I talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago on my show, and I said, this is so different than what it was when I first got involved. I don't know how many people know about the Shade Room. If you don't know about it, you're not missing anything. But I go in the Shade Room occasionally because I like to see, I need to stay plugged in on what's happening on the left, right? That's the only way I feel like I can also do my job effectively, is to also make sure I'm not just in an echo chamber. But one thing I've noticed, even going on a place like the Shade Room, which is super liberal, is that I'm noticing that there are more conservative voices in the comments standing up for things. And now it's still still a lot of liberals in the comments, but when I first would go into the shade room comments, like way back in the day, I felt obligated to respond because there was no conservative voices at all. Now I'll go there and I'll see something and I'm ready to respond, but I'll click that, view more replies. And it's a bunch of different people already responding. And I'm like, oh, I can sit this one out, And that things like it's something that sounds small, but it's a big thing because it just shows that even online, there are more voices standing up, people like you all who are also making content. And then we also saw the results of the election where there was a shift in the black votes, particularly black men. The Hispanic vote moved. So what are you guys seeing today? What do you think is causing the shift, right? I can look at you two and say you two probably can get some credit for that. But what do you think is really the big thing that's allowing minority communities to wake up today that really wasn't happening before?
I think personal experience is usually a big wake-up call for people. I like to say that a lot of people don't actually think about what they're thinking about. They sort of just live off of slogans and just regurgitate what everyone else says. And so I think when the consequences of their ideas actually reach their doorstep and they lose their job, they lose friends for having some very minute opinion, I think that's when they start reconsidering, maybe I'm actually wrong about this. Maybe I should start researching and listening to someone on the opposite end of the aisle. And I think more people are willing to do that because it's just not trendy to hate on conservatives anymore. And as I said, I think a lot of people go where the trends are without actually thinking about what they support.
I said something the other week. I was like, it is becoming normal to be a black conservative. It is becoming normal to be a Hispanic conservative.
I mean, I got to give the shout out to Blexit. They are an amazing organization, but I feel like they are a part of the groundbreaking, starting it off, getting this thing going with attacking and fighting the culture war. We're starting to see people like Stephen A. Smith. They still kind of tote the line, but it's starting to become more popular for people to just go ahead and come on out and really stand on how they really feel and what they really believe. As they go on, there's little things that confirm to them that, no, I don't really agree with that, but because the crowd is so loud and there's so many people that have gone with that herd mindset, they usually don't kind of say nothing. They kind of sit by and stay silent. But I think now that we've caught fire and the flame is just out of control now, we've gotten loud. We got as loud as the left. The left was loud. We're just as loud as the left. I believe that with this election, we've won the culture war by combating them with just common sense, combating them with things that are just clear, like, hey, this is wrong. I don't have to list them. We all know what those things are. And I think that's how we did it. And I think that we should continue to keep doing it. And we're making it, I don't want to say cool, but we're making it like, no, there's nothing wrong with me to stand on my values. This is how I feel. This is what I believe. There's nothing wrong with putting God first. There's nothing wrong with wanting a strong nuclear family. There's nothing wrong with valuing education. There's nothing wrong with wanting law and order and cleaning up our communities. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that we need to continue to keep fighting the culture war, continue to keep raising our voices, maybe not be belligerent in it, but just keep raising our voices and continue to do what we've been doing, man.
You hit on something important in the culture wars, and also we're just as loud as the left, and that stuck with me because I look at, what we are doing with Brexit, for example. We're going to places that I think the left owned for so long, including, like, let's just be honest, some black churches, right? Can I talk about that for a second? I'm just being honest. I know it's church, but listen. Sometimes they're leading people the wrong way. But, Brexit is doing things like Night of Faith in some black churches. And we also took on HBCU campuses, historically black colleges and universities. And I think that was an area, yeah. I remember when I was like, look, I feel like Brexit needs to be on HBCUs. And someone said to me, oh my gosh, like you're going into the lion's den. There's no way Brexit is going to make any movement or get any traction on those campuses. And, that's just way too hard. I think you guys should spend your resources in other places. And when you tell us something is hard, we are now going for sure. Because we, if we don't do it, who else will? And that's how we kind of look at it. I think we were put in this moment by Christ himself to do these things, right? And to help awaken people. And we always say, we're not telling people what to think, we're telling people to think. And that's the message we bring to HBCUs. We're not here to tell any of the students what to think. We're here to tell them to think. What's the problem with that? How can you argue with something like that? So, no, I appreciate that. And then speaking into the culture wars a little bit more, I want to dig into that a little bit. How do you think your voices, Blexit, other groups, how do you think that is making a difference? And I know you touched on this a little bit, but I want to go deeper into this because if you're not doing something in this room, I think hopefully what you're getting out of their message too is do something. Right? Get involved, join the fight in some way. But what have you noticed with your platforms, your ability to speak up? Like, how has that made an impact on your audiences, and why is it important for people to continue to speak up?
Yeah, so I think everyone has a role to play. Your journey may not look exactly like ours. I think even on a local level, just not shying away from conversations with your friends or your family members. Obviously, I think doing something like that has a trickle effect, and it's very powerful. So I think that like I said, everyone just has a role to play. I don't know if I can elaborate on that more.
I think not everybody's going to be a social media content creator like we are, and I understand that. Some people will maybe just successful in business, or the way they are a leader within their business, or how they are within their coworkers, or their everyday, day-to-day lives, or how they are as a mother or a father. I think that the change just starts with you as an individual. You may not realize someone's watching you, and once you make a stance like that, which is a very bold stance. Now, I mean, we're making such a cultural shift. Make the bold stance, but be the example and live that. And even though people may cancel you or disown you, and you don't hear from them no more, and they don't want to talk to you, they're still watching. A lot of people that I guess canceled me out of their lives, it's amazing how I see them come back now. And the reason why, one of the main things that I hear from them is, you know what, man, I respect you. You were consistent, and you never wavered on what you believed and the things that you said. So I think that each and every one of you, just like you're here today, you wear the hat, you speak out, or you don't agree or you disagree. Continue to do that, but be the individual, be the light, be the example for people to follow, because you may not realize that someone is watching you. And just you being consistent and being not a hypocrite, but living the life that you say that we should be living, the values and the things that you're standing up for, someone is watching you and someone is respecting the fact that you're not wavering on that.
And just to add to that too, what Gothic says, we all have a role to play, and whatever your role is, it may look different, like what Craig said too, it may look different from theirs, from mine, but don't feel like you don't have a role to play. Don't be something that you're not. Do exactly what God is calling you to do. Right? And sometimes it's really just doing stuff and doing work in your community. It may be making videos on social media. It may be getting involved with an organization, which I would encourage everyone to get involved in something, even if it's not Blex, to get involved somewhere. Because more than anything, we cannot take our foot off the gas. I understand the election went the way that we wanted it to go, but at the end of the day, we know what it's like to experience the other side of that, right? So we have to make sure that now that we have momentum, that we keep that momentum. Anybody who watches sports understands the importance of momentum. It can shift at any moment. So do not take your foot off the gas. What advice would you guys give someone who, they want to break free, but they're afraid of the consequences? And I think this is an important question, because after every breakout room or whenever I have these conversations, there's always an individual who comes to me afterwards, and they're like, I heard everything you said, Pierre, but I'm taking that step is just really hard. Like, it's really hard to take that step because, again, some of the stuff that we've talked about, the family members, the friends, all the things that can happen, the job. What's the advice that you would give that person that's sitting in this room today that is on the fence?
I think of a passage from scripture that says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul in the process? So my question to that person would be, think about what it is you're afraid of losing, And if it's that you're afraid of losing a relationship, is that relationship as solid as you think it is? If it's, oh, I'm afraid of losing my job, is the truth not worth more than money? Is your integrity not worth more than money? You know, all of these things are gonna, they come and go. They're gonna pass away. This world is gonna pass away. So the way that I look at it is stand on what you believe, stand on the truth, and don't be afraid of losing these things, because that's how the enemy controls us. You know, we're so afraid of having this open hand. I'm going to lose all these things. Like I said, I got canceled. I lost most of my subscribers, my fans at the time, but that was okay because at least I was standing on the truth. And I think if you allow things to work out, everything will work towards good in the end.
This is an interesting question for me. The reason why is some of us have jobs. I would say be strategic. I don't want you to just go, just wild out, throw the chair. I mean, you know what I mean? Let's have a little bit discretion on it. Be strategic if you're at your workplace. There's times where what's it, Ecclesiastics? There's a time and a place for everything, right? So be strategic. I'm not telling you to just go and quit your job. No, don't do that. And that's me being funny, but it's a different humor.
Quit your job.
But it's, I don't know, I think it's in all of us, and it just depends on what triggers it, right? There's a saying that I always kept with me, the dog that's on the nail, the dog that complains and it's whining and moaning, that it's sitting on the nail, and all it has to do is get off the nail. So sometimes we'll tolerate certain things, but there's a pivotal point where something just triggers you, and you just don't, you refuse. You don't want to do it no more. And I think for me personally, that's what happened to me. I couldn't take it no more. I felt like I was in a bottle. I just couldn't take it no more. And I know there's many of you here that are probably the same way. So to say to have courage, some people, they don't know how to find courage. They don't know how to get to that point. So to get there, sometimes it's just something that you don't expect it. It's just it'll hit you, and you just have to act on it and have faith that everything will be okay, even when it doesn't seem like it will be. I know that sounds trivial how I just went around that, but I really don't know how to tell you to just stand up for yourself and stand up for what you believe. Just don't waver. I'm just a different kind of person, man. If I'm right, we all know how thin a piece of hair is. If I'm right, just as thin as a piece of hair, I'm going to go all the way to the death. But if I'm wrong, I will concede. I will say, hey, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I will apologize. You just have to find that in yourself. You have to find that triggering point that's going to make you say, no, enough is enough.
Well said. I want to do something for a second really quick. I know all of our leaders are not in here, but if you're a Blexit leader, stand up. Or if you're involved in Blexit. So for everyone in this room, if you are in this place that we're talking about right now, look at the faces that are standing up. Every single person that is in this room that's standing up will help you. They will help you. Make sure you grab them after this and you chat with them, you talk to them, and you get advice from them. Because every single person will help you. And if they don't, tell me. I'm joking. They will. So appreciate you guys, Blakely. One thing I want to add to that too, though, is sometimes it's about planting the seed. So when I got involved, I will tell you this: the conservative movement or people in the conservative movement, sometimes we have the facts on our side. So we're like, we want to drill those facts down people's throats, and we're like, boom, 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 boom. And you have to understand that it goes a little deeper than just drilling facts into people, and it's an emotional attachment sometimes to the left. I'm just being real. I was voting for the left, and I couldn't even tell you why. Like if I got into a real debate, I didn't even know what values I was actually standing on. I just knew that my mom did it, my dad did it, my grandmama did it. Everybody was voting for the Democrats. You know, that was just who we were as a family. I knew that I was taught that the right was racist, and everything was emotional for me. And I know that's not every single person's journey, but when I really sat down and I started to just weigh or separate the values, right? And not a candidate, not a party, just values. What do I believe in? That was what made a huge difference for me. And then one of the things that Blexit did in the early years was we had a paper and we put conservative values on one side and we put liberal values on the other, and we didn't put any candidates or party labels on it at all either. And I remember we were door knocking and we were talking to people in minority communities, and we were just like, hey, we just want to see where you stand on certain issues and stuff. And the people that didn't slam the door in our face, the ones who did interact with us, I'm not even kidding, over 90% of the time, they leaned conservative. Over 90, I'm pretty sure it was probably closer to like 98% of the time. It was rare for us to find a person who aligned more with the left than the right. Yet they're voting for the left. So that just shows you that there is such an emotional appeal, and the left understands that. They get that. That's why they want to silence us, because if we dare have an opportunity to debate them in front of an audience of minorities, they just might come out of the room saying, man, I actually agree with the conservatives more. So what do? They choose to just cancel, like, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome in this space. And by not welcoming us, allows them to continue to dominate the campus or the community or whatever event it is. They can dominate the thought process there because they're the only ones that are speaking. So we just always ask for an opportunity to be able to share our side. Again, not telling people what to think, but how to think. That's the key thing. What can we share with people in this room? I know there's some less melanated people always make that joke in the room than us on stage. You guys are needed in this fight, and I want you guys to know that. How can we equip them? Because I've had people come up to me, I've had white people come up to me and say, Pierre, how do I talk to, black people in my church? Or how do I talk to my black neighbor? Or maybe they're coming from a mixed family and they're like, how do I talk to this person without them looking at me as a white person like, you can't speak on this? What advice would you give to some of the people in this room on how they should be able to approach conversations like that?
Oh my goodness.
I wanted to give y'all a deep one to go into.
So let's be 100% honest. I think that to say that it's an emotional factor, I think that's part of it, but I think the deeper issue is that people have made skin color their idol. So they don't worship God, they worship themselves, and they worship skin color. And so what's happening is that when you criticize something like DEI or all of these woke ideologies, you're actually criticizing their God. And so I think we have to be able to separate that and say, okay, in terms of how do I speak to my black friend, speak to your friend, okay? Don't entertain their identity politics. Just see them as a human being and learn how to separate the values from black, because I also was on the left, and I voted for people because of black. That's not a value, that's a color. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Just treat them like human.
I'm working on this, y'all. I promise you, if you ever seen any of my content, I'm telling you, this is a calmer version of myself. I'm telling you. Shout out to, I ain't gonna put
Where's
it out.
Craig's wife at? Where's she at? There she go.
I promise you, this is a calmer version of myself, man. She's absolutely right. They idolize their skin color over God. It's the way of the left. They compartmentalize everything. They'll put you in a box real quick. Women, the color of your skin, your sexuality. They do it on a consistent basis. And for me, the conservative movement, we tend to go off of facts, and they tend to go off an emotion. I'll use the justice system. When they say, well, the justice system is targeting black folks and we're getting locked up and there's someone on the 13th floor, I only can use my own personal experience and the numbers, the statistics, the data. And I say, well, it wasn't a white man, it wasn't a system, it wasn't a mystical dust floating around that I breathed in that caused me to pick up a firearm and shoot two people point blank range. So you start thinking, you mature, and you start thinking, well, hey, wait a minute. I hear what they're saying. I look at the data, but for myself, which they love to say I'm an anecdotal experience, I'm an exception to the rule. Me being black, you're not going to be successful. You're a felon. You're this, you're that. And you have to reject that and live your life, like I said earlier, as a light. And I said, well, I know I made my bed hard. it's better to create a job than go find one. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the best that I can, regardless of these stipulations that they've put on me. And I've crushed everything ever since. I've received all my civil rights back. I can vote, do notary, jury duty, and then I petitioned the court, and I hired a lawyer, and I got my Second Amendment rights back. So use the data. Use the data. The data does not lie. Statistics don't lie. And sometimes you defy the odds from your own personal experiences. So that would be in a nutshell how I would go about doing it without being belligerent.
By the way, look at this breakout room. Thank you guys so much. This is a packed house. So appreciative of you all. I think we have about 10 minutes. I would love to get some questions in for you guys. I know they want here in the middle aisle. She has the mic back here. So if you do want to ask questions, please get in line right here in the middle aisle.
What's up, my man?
What's up? So a lot of people on the left, they talk about white supremacy, but at the same time, they also praise Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society and Margaret Sanger's Planned Parenthood based on eugenics. So what's with the double standard?
Exactly. First of all, I do not identify with white supremacy. I am not affiliated with white supremacy. I don't think any of us in this room are. But they love to say that we are agents of white supremacy. And that exact question is one of the main things that I love to throw back at them. You say that you're against systemic racism and these systemic things that are in place to keep people down, but yet you promote and uplift someone that we all know that was involved with eugenics, Margaret Sanger. They strategically, systemically put hoods around urban minority communities. Right now, our birth rate, it's not good looking good for us. So that question, you throw it right back at them just like you just did. It's logical, the data is there, but they say, well, she wasn't for eugenics, she changed, the movement changed, they'll move the goalpost on you. And that's something that they tend to do on a consistent basis. Great question, it's something that I love to throw back at them. Y'all want to elaborate on that?
I think you hit it on there.
Man, he getting me going, man.
Hi, my name's Gabriella. So my mom is white and my dad's Hispanic. My dad, he's a full-on Democrat and all this stuff, and it's hard because I've always looked up to him growing up. But as I've gotten older, I realize he has a huge victim mentality and just a very fear-based mindset. And especially with the military deportations coming up, even though he's legal, we're fifth-generation Hispanics. Yeah, he's terrified that the military is gonna come after him. And we live in my dad lives in Houston, so it's right by the border, kind of. But yeah, so I guess how do you combat that, especially as a Christian? It's so sad to see someone you've looked up to your whole life and realize that they're not really as strong mentally. It's just a very fear-based mindset. How do you combat that, especially when that's your father?
Is your father Christian?
He is, which I don't get.
Now listen, let me say this. I always have to put the disclaimer on it. I'm not a pastor or preacher. I'm not a Bible thumper. I want to make sure I'm not taking on that mantle, even though people are trying to say I'm called to be in the pulpit. That's not true. I'm rejecting that.
Reverend Craig.
This is something that I deal with. This is something that I deal with. My father is black. My mother is mixed with white. And I have a large family that is white. So when they when they speak this way and they take on these mindsets, these forms of anger, hatred, and resentment, I have to remind them, well, you're asking me to hate my own mother because my mother is mixed. She's mixed with white. How do I do that? So I'll ask them very soft and subtle. But if he's a Christian, just ask him 2 Corinthians 5:17. If he's a Christian and he believes in Jesus Christ and he stands on that Bible is a forgiving Bible. Be anyone in Christ is a new creation, be all things passed away. If he's a Christian, then he should stand on the Bible, be forgiving, and say, hey, to adopt the anger, hatred, and resentment, to hate a group of people because of the color of their skin, to hate a group of people because of how they vote and who they support. Just remind him that, hey, as Christians, this is not how we're supposed to be. There's many people that are on the left that I dislike, but I don't hate them. I don't hate them at all.
And make sure your dad turns off CNN and MSNBC, by the way, too.
Hi, my name's Kyle, and
What's up, Kyle?
I grew up in a racist home. My father was racist. When we adopted my son, he disowned me. But it was worth it. And my question to you is, though, when we're speaking to people on the other side, how do we get through the hurt and the pain that they want to hang on to? And how do we get them to see to move past that? How do we get them to see the better version of themselves that they can become, and that we're willing to help them despite, and I loved what you said so much, that skin is an idol. If we're kingdom people, we're all working for the kingdom. And so how do we get them to see that?
I would say just be an example and let Christ shine through you. I think people need role models, and the fact of the matter is we live in a very broken world, and not everyone has like their ideal role models, but you can be that. You can just be that example. And I think this is also why I say that to find community of like-minded individuals that can provide that type of mentorship as well. But thank you. I want to thank you. I wish I could hug you, but thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man. Great question.
My name is Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, and President Donald Trump came to my church. I spoke at the RNC, and thank you so much.
Give it up for him.
And I pastor in the city of Detroit. Many people don't know that we have 1,000 majority black cities in America. And my question, I want to just give context, those 57 congressional districts are the highest in poverty. They are the highest in foreclosures, the highest in illiteracy. They are the worst places to live in America. Blexit, you are the most dangerous weapon that the Republicans have. You are. I don't think you get it, though. And this is what I'm asking as a pastor. What are we doing to lobby the GOP so we can get resources into our community so we can put conservative leadership into offices? What are we doing to do that?
I think the first thing, I'm going to go back to that word consistency, because I'm going to back up for a second. There were a lot of opportunities for the right to do minority engagement. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think it was being done correctly for decades. And now we see something that has lasted, something that is making a true impact. I mean, we just saw some of the Black leaders that stood up in this room, and there's so many more around this conference, and we're going into places that the left owned, right? So the first thing is that we have to show that this is something that can be done, and I think we are showing that. And then the next thing is that we then take that leverage, we take what we've done, we take that impact, and we demand, not ask, demand a seat at the table, right? And I think we're seeing that. I think the Trump campaign did a little more. This was probably the most I've seen from a GOP campaign do in minority communities. I mean, the fact they came to your church, right? And I like to think Blexit had a big part in that. We made it known that this community is worth the resources and the investment, and it can move, right? So that's the first step. But we do have to continue to build on this. And I look at the event we're at today. We're sitting in the breakout room with Turning Point USA, and this is the biggest, I mean, can we all agree, this is probably the biggest organization right now on the right. And yet Blexit is featured front and center, right? In a space that probably we wouldn't have been featured front and center maybe 5 years ago. So we're seeing the progress, we're seeing the growth. We just have to continue to build on that. We have to keep building on that.
And I would just encourage you, I would just encourage you. The Bible says where a man's treasure is, his heart is also. You need to have a conversation with the GOP. Mike, I think Mike's gonna be here today, Whitley. You have to pull, what's his name? You need to pull him aside, and we need to get in that budget. If we do not get in that budget, we will never have black conservatives in elected offices, gubernatorial seats. They will never be in the state legislature, and they will not be in Congress. We need to get in that budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I am being told in the back that we do need to stop, but if you do have questions, I'm sorry, but we can all hang around afterwards and answer your questions, all right? Thank you guys so much again. I appreciate it. I know we want more of this, right? They need to give us 2 hours next time. Thank you guys.
Yeah, wait. Your old